Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where we work hard and play hard on our little corner of land in Iowa. My husband and I were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, or horse and buggy Mennonite, as some refer to them as. And although we are no longer part of that culture or community, we are intentional about passing on the old-fashioned skills of our childhood to the next generation. So in today's video, I am going to be showing how we have built these raised beds, and we're going to be planting blueberry bushes, and we're also going to be touring my brother's blueberry farm. So blueberries have been a dream of mine for probably the last 10 years. So if I've dreamt of raising blueberries for my family for the last 10 years, why am I only now planting blueberries? One of the reasons is that I am very aware of the fact that blueberries don't naturally grow here in Iowa. Our soil is very sweet or very alkaline. Our soil here tests between 7 and 8 on a pH level. And blueberries prefer 3 to 4. So blueberries need to be babied, and for the last 22 years, I have been raising babies and toddlers. And for that reason, all my gardening effort has gone to raising things that thrive here in our soil. Like corn and beans and potatoes and strawberries and raspberries, just because I didn't have the capacity or the bandwidth to baby, 20 blueberry plants. And, it's really hard when you have babies and toddlers. Your time in the garden is oftentimes limited. But now that my baby is 7, now that my babies are 7 and 8, I think it's finally time that I can plant some blueberry bushes. So I ordered my plants from Stark Nursery, and the soil in these beds behind me we've just begun adding to it, but my blueberries are also pretty small, so they're not gonna have a huge requirement right now. So one of the things about blueberries is the bushes will bear for 50 plus years. So that is another reason why I wanted them in these beds like this. They're not exactly raised beds, they're just kind of border beds, because I don't want to battle the yard trying to take over my blueberry beds for the next 50 years. If I would live that long. So this is what we have designed to be more, to be easier to take care of as we age and have less strength for keeping the yard out of our gardens, because the yard will take over here. So I'm going to be showing how we build these raised beds, and we also went to my brother, and I'm going to be showing his blueberry farm. And then hopefully for the rest of the summer, I'll be able to give you updates on how my little blueberry plants are doing. And I visited with a couple different blueberry growers in this area and got recommendations for what varieties to plant. And so that's what today's video is going to be all about. So to build the borders for my berry patch, we started with treated lumber that was 2 by 6 by 16. And then we didn't want a bottom in the beds because we want the roots of the berries to be able to go down well past 6 inches of height that our boards are. And then we added some braces to keep the 16-foot boards from bowing when we add the soil. And as always around here, we are doing so much more than just building garden beds. We are learning and teaching some very practical life skills along the way. So we covered the entire area with ground cover and then placed our garden boxes on top of the ground cover. Then we put down some bark mulch between the beds where the pathways will be, and this helped to hold the ground cover or the landscape fabric in place for our next step. So because we want our plants to have access to more than 6 inches of topsoil, we need to get rid of all the ground cover that is in the bottom of our beds. So we're cutting a big X in each section, and then we will just fold it up and staple it up against the sides of our boards. So once we've opened up the bottom of each box, we are taking paper feed sacks to line each box. The paper feed sacks will block any light from getting to the grass, and it will actually kill the grass and then compost down into the soil underneath the topsoil that we're going to add to each box. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle some compost on top of the paper feed sacks to hold them in place until Elvin comes to fill the beds with topsoil. So after Elvin fills the beds with topsoil, the kids and I work together to even it all out and pick out any clumps of clay or grass roots. And this was topsoil that we bought from over closer to the river bottom. So it's a little darker than the topsoil in our garden. But as far as pH, it has measured about exactly the same as the pH of the soil in my garden.
Mine is like,
Hold them up, see whose is longer.
Kendrick's is, but mine is fatter.
Kendrick's is longer. Oh, yours is stretching out.
Oh, it's trying to get out.
So after Elvin and Mitchell built all the boxes, the kids and I were able to do the rest of it mostly by ourselves. Elvin did fill all the boxes with topsoil for us, and we ended up building 8 boxes, and we have about 1,500 square feet, with about half of that being growing space and the rest being pathways. So I've decided that the far south beds are going to be for my strawberries, and then the next 2 beds are going to be for my blueberries. And because blueberries have lots of very fine hair-like roots, they need the soil to be very light and airy, so that those fine hair-like roots can get nutrients. So to ensure that our soil does not become too compact for my blueberries, we are adding some peat moss, some sphagnum peat moss, to the beds where I am going to plant the blueberries into. So here you can see the difference between the sphagnum peat moss and the regular topsoil. You can see that the regular topsoil does become compact much easier than the sphagnum peat moss. So today we are here at my brother's sawmill and we are picking up some wood chips for my blueberries. So in addition to a sawmill, my brother has a produce farm, and here it is. There he's got his raspberries, all his beehives, and the boys and I are going to go and give you a tour of his 300 blueberry plants.
Are they full?
So this is my brother's blueberry field. Just the really dark ones are ready. Oh yeah.
This is a dark one, right, Mom? Right?
So good. Yep, that one's ready. Oh yeah, this row has a lot that are ready.
This much.
Show me. Wow. So there he's got his 300 blueberry plants, and then there's all of his squash and peppers and green beans and beautiful, beautiful onions. And then over there, all of that is strawberries. And then, of course, there's his sawmill too, and his big water tanks. So we got our wood chips for our blueberry beds, and we got some blueberries to snack on the way home. And we got to see my brother. So the day to plant the blueberries is finally here. So in case you're wondering what the boys are up to, all 4 of the boys are up there playing tractor pool in that dirt patch. So the first 3 are Blueray variety, and then the next 3 are Northcountry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I want 5 in each bed. And then we've got the Blueray that we're gonna put down here in this bed. I'm gonna put 1 more Northcountry, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the blueberry special fertilizer that I got. And if you've been here a while, you know that I don't like to use synthetic fertilizers at all, if I can help it. But, like I said, blueberries don't naturally grow here. So we're gonna sprinkle some fertilizer on. And then what I ordered, but it didn't come in time for the video, is some sulfur chips. And the sulfur chips will help lower the pH real fast. Whereas wood chips take years to break down. The wood chips that we'll put on is more of a long-term plan, and the sulfur is more of a short-term plan to change the pH level. And this fertilizer is just to get them going in the first month or so. And my brother told me that ideally you would amend your soil and get it ready for about a year before you plant blueberry plants. But then he also said with as little as my plants are, their root system isn't going to be as intense yet, so I probably have time in the next month or so to lower the fertilizer level. But he said a blueberry plant will die in a soil pH of 8. And that's what we've got here, is a soil pH of 8. So as soon as those sulfur chips come, I will be adding those, and he assured me that that would help a lot. So now I'm gonna water these in. So I'm gonna use these soaker hoses to water my blueberries because I don't wanna use my hose and disturb the soil and the root system too much by heavy watering. All right, here we go. We've got them planted, we got them fertilized, and we are watering them in. There's my very first 15 blueberry plants. And hopefully these will be here and my grandchildren will harvest blueberries from these. So I should probably draw a little map and tape it on the inside of my kitchen cabinet showing what variety of blueberries I planted, because I've learned my lesson that our apple and pear and plum tree varieties and even our cherry tree varieties, you know, we bought them, we planted them, and for that summer we remembered what variety they were, but ask me now, I have no idea what variety they are. So it would probably be a good idea to start keeping track of these perennial plants that, you know, will be here for the next generation, so that I know, so that they can learn what varieties did well here. So as I was saying, one of the reasons I wanted those border beds was because this is the struggle of the yard trying to take over my garden, and it's just a constant struggle every summer. And this summer it's not even as intense because we haven't had as much rain, but I also know that I will really appreciate having those borders where the yard cannot get to my blueberry plants. So one of the other reasons that we decided now is a good time for us to plant blueberries is because of whey. So with all the cow's milk that we're getting, we're making a lot of cheese and yogurt, which means that we have a lot of whey left over from that cheese and yogurt. And whey is very good for watering your acid-loving plants. So I have about half a gallon of whey from yogurt making, and I am going to dilute that by half. So I'm going to fill this up with water, mostly because my plants are so tender and young. Probably a full-grown blueberry plant, or one that's like 3 or 4 years old, could probably handle straight whey. But because mine are so young, I'm going to dilute it. So Maxwell and I are out here, and we're gonna start putting some bark chips, wood chips, on our little blueberry plants. And it is very warm this afternoon. We should have done this morning, but the kids all had VBS, and so we're not going to hustle real hard. We're just gonna work nice and easy and slow. Isn't that right, Maxwell? Yeah, so that we don't have to sweat so much. So like I was saying earlier, the wood chips, as they break down, will help the soil pH, but that's like a long-term thing. Like it'll take years for that to happen. And that is why I'm gonna be adding some sulfur pellets, because that will bring the soil pH down temporarily, but it'll do it immediately, like within weeks. So the wood chips are long-term and permanent if I keep reapplying it. And the sulfur chips will do it temporarily, but it'll be short-term. So now that we've got all our wood chips on, it's time to turn the hose on and water them all again. Well, that brings us to the end of the blueberry segment of today's YouTube video. And in other news, the garden has been doing amazing, and we have harvested a couple things so far. We've taken all the garlic scapes off, and we have harvested all of our whole peas, like the kind that you shell, and we have preserved about 30 pounds of those peas, and those are all in the freezer. The corn is about to go into tassels, and we received last weekend about 2 inches of rain. So since that, the garden has just been growing in leaps and bounds, and I have been reminded of how wonderful the rain is that falls from the sky, because the difference between from the time I was watering the plants to the time they got rain was outstanding. So thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, thank you for all of your support here on our channel. My family and I sure do appreciate every view that we get.